Don't you just want to sit there and play your video games and actually have fun, download the cosmetics you want, and actually just dive into the game? But no, no. Today we're going to talk about how the real day world is spilling over into video games and everything to do with pop culture.
Are you sick and tired of being politically correct?
Yeah.
Would you like to recycle a vegetarian, save a spotted owl, and throw it on the Barbie?
That's right. I'm putting my foot into the Nickmercs situation here, which is absolutely absurd because obviously a couple people, or the people that normally put this out there, didn't have a full understanding on what's going on with this situation. The situation is there's a school down in the States. I see this trend everywhere on Twitter. I see this everywhere in media right now. And I live up here in Canada where things are not so normal when it comes to this type of thing, but I'm also in Alberta, so we kind of have a little bit more sense of a normal of things being a little bit more normal, being around this bubble, but it's still coming. It's still something that is needs to be talked about and needs to have an eye-opening refresh here. Now, I gotta say, it comes down to almost 3 to 4 different groups of people. It's not just 2 groups of people. It's not just one group of people. There's 3 or 4 groups of people, in which case the 2 in the middle are the normal ones. It's the 2 on the outside of the looking at the normal ones, trying to encapsulate them and trying to tear the middle apart. And that's the problem that is going on here. Now, the next Maris situation, so this Pluckett makes this tweet saying they're seeing us from their Overwatch League apartment. Now, he is a broadcaster for Twitch. He's done a lot of shoutcasting for, Twitch esports sort of thing. A lot of people that just sit there and watch these esport things and don't really care about the people that are behind it. But of course, the people that are behind it are the ones that climb these corporate ladders, that sit there and do anything possible to gain that extra little check mark beside their name so they can climb that ladder and be the resume that they want to be. From Twitch TV, esports Hall of Fame broadcaster, player, executive producer, tournament lead, and commentator since 2022. Now booking for Q3 and 4 for 2023, and he will probably fill up those dates because he's on the right side of whatever this argument might be. So what has happened here is there is a protest down in the States over a school demonstration that happened there. Now, it happens to be a lot of LGBTQ that happens to be part of June. It's all of June now is Pride Month. I remember when June used to be about Indigenous Days. It used to be about the end of the school year, looking forward to the summer vacation as a student and not trying to duck your head, trying to just hide because of everyone around you acting like children and having it spill out into the streets. It really does remind me of the movie PCU, where it's politically correct university. If you say the wrong thing, or if you say something that someone finds offense to it, they will tie you up to a flagpole and make you sit there from your underwear trying to understand what you did wrong.
Here's the deal, and they call it PC.
PC?
Politically correct. And it's not just politics, it's everything. It's what you eat, it's what you wear, and it's what you say.
So what has actually happened here is at this protest or a school board meeting where the parents came forward saying we don't want certain things happening in our schools, mostly books that depict a lot of nudity, a lot of sexual acts, and a lot of things that are just not right to be in front of kids. It's not something that I want my kid exposed to when he gets to that grade. When kids get to like 10, 12 to 12, that's where they're hitting puberty, and you start wanting to have a little bit more adult style conversations. But it's not to the point where you need these depictions of how to blow someone off, because that's absolutely disgusting and shouldn't be in schools. What's happening is some of these schools, I'm guessing it's a very small minority of schools where these things really do bubble over, mostly on coastal cities at this point. And it's become well known for some of these school districts where the parents are sitting there and they've had enough of it, and they're stepping up and saying, listen, this is not what we want your kid, what we want you to teach our kids. It used to be a situation where parental consent had to be given for you to be taught sexual things and have these conversations with your kids. And in some cases, parents still would sit there and say, no, we want to have the conversation with our kids, and we don't want them to learn about these things in school. Now, it used to be simple things like putting on a condom, talking about having safe sex and all these other things. But no, it's turned into a sort of situation where some of these things where they talk about fetishizing, they talk about how to use a sex toy, they talk about, you sit there, and when I sit there and I read these things and I see them online, I go, that's not part of what would be this career life management sort of thing. It's not where sexual education would actually come into play. This is things that, yes, kids are going to explore with themselves and all that, but it doesn't make things safer. It doesn't make things good for kids. And that is where Nick turned around and said they should leave little kids alone. That's the real issue. Now, it's been spun up into this whirlwind tornado where it's become a LGBTQ situation over it, and that's not the situation. It has nothing to do with the LGBTQ in general. In general, it's not to do with them. There is a very small subject of that situation where people do claim that they're LGBTQ when they're actually more trying to do things with kids that aren't good. And they have been called out majority by all sides, even though you get into things like this where confrontations spill over into violence. It's absolutely ridiculous at this point to hear about. Well, because Nick comes out and says, leave the kids alone, stop making this a political issue with kids involved, and just have the kids get taught what they should be taught: arithmetic, reading, writing, your basic things, history and stuff like that. And then sexual education happens to be one of those things that it used to be where parents would sign off on it. I know that's the law up here. Parents have to get consent for these things, and it seems to be slowly getting subverted and perverted. And I keep seeing stories of where teachers are being charged with sexual abuse of kids, and that is what's going on here. Is you have a lot of teachers that have now sat there and played this situation where they're saying they're LGBTQ when they're actually doing negative things to the kids. And that's why Nickmercs has been the target of the LGBTQ, and that he shouldn't be at this point. It should be, we should really step back and take an actual look at these things. Take an actual look at what is going on here. And it's because things are being brought up with kids involved, and there's certain things that kids shouldn't be exposed to, especially at a young age. When I sit there and I hear certain things like this where a kid is being told that because of the color of their skin is makes them have more privilege, I have to sit there and go, no. This was abolished back in the 70s and the 80s with the civil rights movements, and that is why that was there. And now it's gone completely the other way, and to the point where people will be knocking heads in the streets over it, where parents sit there and try and stand up for their kids, and because those parents are standing up for their kids, they get labeled as bigots. But that's not what the case here is. The case is that things are being shown to kids that shouldn't be shown.
You went out with a white male?
He's coming over here. Sisters, form a wall.
Hi, how you doing? Is Sam in there?
In there? What's that supposed to mean?
Yeah, cock man oppressor.
Now, in response to Nickmercs standing up and saying, listen, let's leave the kids out of this. Let have the parents be able to talk to the school board, but they're not being allowed to because of the third party that's coming in here that are sitting there with boots on the ground trying to sit there and knock heads and say, listen, if we don't get this way, then we're going to knock your head in. And that is not the case. That is not what is LGBTQ. Not from everything I've seen. The LGBTQ, I know quite a few people that are LGBTQ. I know people that went and were in the Pride Parade here in Edmonton that has been shut down because of this third party style protesters that sit there and hold these things hostage, saying this one subject cannot march in this parade because they are the ones that are creating this evil. No, they're not. It's this third party activision. Yeah, activists, yes, slip of the tongue where I'm going here with this, because Nickmercs had his Call of Duty skin removed by Activision Blizzard of Call of Duty. This is why it's absolutely ridiculous at this point. We're not allowed to say what is actually on people's minds, what is actually happening, because it's got to be the spin. The media has to spin it as it's an anti-LGBTQ and it's all this hate. No, what's going on here is there is a third party that is pulling the strings. It's a third party that is standing up there and knocking boots in, knocking heads in, because people are trying to stand up for their actual rights in this situation.
You know, this place is kind of insane.
Wait till you meet the cause heads.
The what?
These, Tom, are your cause heads. They find a world-threatening issue and stick with it for about a week.
So Dexerto covered the situation. Why? What did he say? And why did Call of Duty remove his skin? Well, they're jumping on the backs of saying this was a LGBTQ thing in the middle of Pride Month, because you can't speak negatively about Pride Month anymore. You can't speak negatively about June. June is my birth month. I was born in this month. I used to look forward to this month. Now every year I sit there and go, oh God, here we go. Here we go. It's going to be all violence and all political issues and everything like that. This never used to be the issue. It used to be everyone loving and enjoying life and being themselves and doing their own things. But now it's not trendy enough if you're not sitting there jacking someone off. Is that what this is? Is that what June is now? Is all corporations need to sit there and just get it deep into their situation, into their company, and have to change their banner on the backs of people that don't really care in the long run? A lot of people that sit there and look at this and go, I don't want this for my kids. Everyone else grew up normally, and now it's become a twisted world where if you're not gay, you're seen as the bad guy. Where are we? This is absolutely ridiculous at this point. I don't get it. Like I said, maybe it's because I'm in Alberta. Maybe I don't see the bigger picture. Maybe I don't see everything out there. But you know what? It's how do you sustain humanity if things are just going to be part of the issue? If you're not allowed to bring new life into the world, if you're not allowed just to be yourself, there's a lot of things going on here, and I know. I just have to sit there and go, a lot of them are adult conversations that are being held with kids that are as young as 5 years old, and that's not right. That's really where the big issue is. And that's why Nickmercs said, you know what? Leave the kids alone. Let the kids be. Let the kids grow up. That's part of growing up. That's part of who we are. Our generation grew up. We are who we are now because we grew up. And yeah, there was hardships, but that's what everyone goes through. That's part of growing up. You don't sweat the small stuff. And the small stuff has become this big freaking giant issue. And that's why things are blown out of proportion. I gotta say good on Tim the Tap Man. He's actually called now for his own skin to be removed from Call of Duty. That's great to hear that people are standing up and saying, Nick, you're not in the wrong here. You're trying to stand up for your own kids' rights. You're trying to take the side of parents being in the right and then parents sit there and knock heads in because of these things, because they sit there and go, no, you're not allowed to have this. Yeah, be mad. Be mad. That's where they want you. They want you to be mad. No, it's time to sit there and get politically active. Time to sit there and say, listen, the school boards, next time there's a school board, the school board's holding an election, everyone should be getting their own ballot. Everyone that wants to take part in their school boards getting things done right, get on that ballot and actually make the changes. Because where we are now is not doing things right. Because people are scared, and because of this, because people sit there and protest. This isn't even a protest. This is sitting there using violence to the means that are just going to do things wrong. This gives the LGBTQ a black eye, and it shouldn't, because they're being marginalized by this political activism that activism, like, it's absolutely unhinged and needs to end. And we all need to come together as a normal human beings and sit there and have the proper conversations, because apparently the adults in the room aren't allowed to speak. I've rambled on this topic long enough, but where do we go from here? Where does it go? How do you get to mediation in this situation? Because the police aren't allowed to step in because they're seen as the bad guy to begin with. The parents of the children aren't allowed to speak up and say, leave the kids alone, leave the kids, and actually teach the kids what they should be teaching, which is the basics, fundamentals of living, and not become this this political activism in in elementary schools. That's the big thing here. This isn't elementary school speaking. This isn't where parents should be fear for their lives for speaking up for what they think should be taught to their kids. Like, I remember the back when I was in school, if someone was in the neighborhood doing bad things with little kids, people showed up at their doorstep, drugged the guy out, and he would be handed over to the cops after a firm speaking to. Now, it's absolutely ridiculous that it comes down to where parents show up and they're not allowed to speak. They get their heads knocked in for speaking up for their kids' rights. These kids can't consent. That's the biggest deal here, and why the laws need to be stronger on this, and why the police need to be stepping in and saying, listen, no more violence. The arrests need to be made, and majority of the arrests that do get made are from these people that are coming in stomping heads, but it never is spun that way by the media. We always hear, oh, arrests were made, but they never say which side it was, from stories that I see. Now, what are your thoughts? Honestly, just it's absolutely ridiculous at this point. I want to see both sides of the coin here settle down. I wish the best for if you want to be gay, go ahead, be gay. If you want to be yourself, then be yourself. I have no problem with that. It's the fact that parents aren't allowed to speak up for things that are being taught to their kids that honestly are adult conversations. They're not kids' conversations, and adult consent should be given for these conversations, and they're not happening. Anyway, I'm your proud Canadian Cinder Shadow. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have yourselves a great day.